Matt, to you first. So ChrisLynchMedia.com broke the story that Health New Zealand had scrapped plans to charge patients and staff at Build hospitals and presumably other hospitals around the country. That decision came pretty swiftly though, didn't it? Despite the fact the consultation period is not supposed to be finished until February the 18th. So what went on?
Yeah, well done to you, Chris, for breaking the story and drawing attention to it. I think most Cantabrians would be pretty concerned about what they're hearing about with the proposal of charging, like you say, both patients and staff and family and friends who would turn up to visit those patients as well. Look, I suppose for me, there's probably two sides to the argument here, and I sort of have some appreciation for both. Quite rightly, a hospital needs to deliver safe and secure car parking. That needs to be accessible. And when we have cost of living pressures, quite rightly, people don't want to see an additional charge. But on saying that, the money's got to come from somewhere. And I know some people will be thinking, well, I'd prefer we have a user pay system than taking some of this funding out of a health budget that could go into other parts of the health system. So I think it's about getting that balance right. And that's why I agree that they should pause the consultation and go back to the drawing board and have a think about what they're trying to achieve here.
Tracy, it seems that Health New Zealand struggled to see what was going to make sense, particularly as Matt points out, a cost of living crisis, and we're all doing it quite tough, and all of a sudden this comes upon us. Having said that, though, I do note there are other countries around the hospital who routinely charge their patients and staff. What did you make of this?
Well, I agree with Matt insofar, look, we do need car parks. It's important that people can have, good access to health services and hospitals, but not on the back of workers. And, this is what happens when the government puts departments and agencies under pressure and they go, scraping around for half-baked ideas to make their budgets add up. So it's good. And thank you for drawing attention to this. And, it's a good outcome, and hopefully they don't come back with an even worse one.
Matt, unions want any move toward parking privatisation ruled out. Was charging fees ever justified, or was it a wrong idea from the start?
Oh, well, look, it's no surprise that unions would get on the bandwagon about anything that private enterprise is involved in. But I'd put it to you, when you look at the state of the car parks we have classically in our hospitals, and let's not forget the debacle under the last Labour government where there was complete inertia around car parking decisions in Christchurch Public Hospital. Some would say, I don't want the public sector anywhere near my car park. So in the end, it's about the outcome, right? And
having said that, though, it was Megan Woods who made the decision and signed off on the car park near the hospital for public and staff, though.
Well, I think that might have been under a bit of pressure because the National Party in opposition had already made an announcement in government they would make that decision. So, look, people will judge history for what it is. But to go back to your point about, what is the outcome of charging? Yes, it is. About covering some of the expense to ensure that we prioritise our health budgets for health as well. Some would say using a user pay system would be about demand management as well. Quite rightly, we don't want people using up car parks who mightn't need to be there as well. And I think to Tracy's point, yep, it's not nice for staff to incur a new cost for paying for their car to be parked. But I just put it to you, there's a lot of people in Christchurch today who are paying for their parking to go to work as well.
Okay, but
don't
Labour's...
forget,
Go ahead, Tracy.
This proposal was about paying, top-notch commercial rates, so that workers had to pay, the same as someone might pay in the middle of the CBD to go to work. And I just want to, touch on Matt's point about unions. Remember, unions are organisations that are made up of workers. So it is their job to advocate for ordinary people going to work every day. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I think there should be a lot more of it.
New Zealand has slipped to 4th on the Corruption Perceptions Index. I mean, is this a real warning sign, Matt, or better detection of wrongdoing?
Oh, look, I think we should be concerned. I think it's always important to think about how we protect ourselves, especially from foreign interference, potential of fraud and corruption. Look, when you put it in context, we are the fourth least corrupt country out of 182 on that table. So, I mean, there is somewhat a lot that we can be comforted from and take great pride from living in a country that is the fourth least corrupt country in the world. On saying that, I don't think we should be complacent or arrogant about it. And quite rightly, we should always be aware of potential issues that we are facing. I mean, we saw last election the issues we had with the party on the left that was engaging in some quite questionable electioneering behaviour, and that has been referred to directly in some of these reports about the threats and the attacks on democracy, and that's why we are seeing ourselves slip a very small amount of 2 points, and we should always be focused on improving.
Tracy, the Anti-Corruption Task Force reports hundreds of millions of dollars in public fraud and corruption, making up, I think, 40% of these serious fraud cases. What immediate changes do you think would be needed? I mean, it's still not good, is it?
No, it's not good. And the report also suggests it's a bit of a tip of the iceberg and that there could be a lot more uncovered. And we should take it seriously. And this government absolutely needs to take it seriously. And, the SFO, the Serious Fraud Office, had funding cut. And at a time where we should be making sure that there's more prevention and more detection, this government has to take some responsibility for slashing those budgets and making that really important task even harder.
That a fair comment, Matt?
No, I disagree with that. You only need to see the increased investment into fighting organised transnational criminal networks, the work we're doing around cyber criminal activity as well. And, ultimately there's a lot of threat of foreign interference in there. That's why we are a member of the Five Eyes. And, quite often in Parliament, we do come under a lot of scrutiny from the opposition around our position globally, around addressing some of those threats. And now they can see why we do take a very strong position.
Tracy, Nicola Willis announced this so-called independent COVID review. Can't say that. I'm having too many whiskies in the morning. And it's going to be released just before the election. Is this really practical timing, or is this political timing, or is it both?
Well, you would think if Nicola Willis was very keen to learn more and learn some lessons, she would have called for an inquiry when she first became Minister of Finance, not halfway through an election year. So it seems a little bit cynical, and I would suggest a little bit of desperate timing to create some sort of distraction. But that is what's going to happen, so it will be interesting to see how that plays out.
Matt, it does seem a bit desperate, doesn't it? I mean, critics say that this reopens the old COVID arguments for electoral gain. It certainly seems like that, though, doesn't it? Do you think this may have backfired? Don't worry, I won't tell her that you've said something.
No, not at all. I mean, when you look at the original terms of reference from Labor into the Royal Commission and COVID-19, there clearly needed to be a higher prioritisation of looking at monetary policy. I think Nicola was very clear when she announced it. The timing was also related to the sequencing. The first focus for us was returning the Reserve Bank to the single mandate of the inflation ban, because of course the last Labor government changed it to also employment, which caused the issues that we have today. The second area she then moved on to focus on was appointing a new Reserve Bank governor, who now we have in place. And then the final part was obviously to conduct this inquiry to look at monetary policy. And look, you only need to see that the effects of the decisions of the Reserve Bank over the COVID-19 period, quite rightly, we need to understand. We need to learn from that for future shocks potentially.
But as you've just said, we're learning from it now because you've already identified the problems. I think many people would probably say that Labor probably spent far too much. For better or worse, this review, of course, is going to look at low interest rates, as you've said, quantitative easing. But Tracy, is this really about learning lessons or just shifting blame in election year?
Well, I think it's cynical, but as you say, the criticism is that Labor spent too much, but always remember that it was National and opposition that were encouraging, screaming from those benches that more needed to be spent on the wage subsidy and more needed to be spent. So, it's a little bit cynical to revise history now, but the timing certainly is interesting.
Matt, this review, is it going to deliver genuine reform rather than becoming an election issue?
Yeah, I mean, just to pick up on what Tracy said there, we're not looking at fiscal policy. The review is into monetary policy, which is the wheelhouse of the Independent Reserve Bank. So that's why we're inducting that inquiry into that. It's not an area that has been looked into at the moment, and that's why, quite rightly, any future international shocks we need to be prepared for, and that's the inquiry we're undertaking. I mean, I can see why Labor obviously is starting to position themselves ahead of what they perceive might be the outcome. I'd only point to the lack of commitment by Labor leaders of turning up in front of the Royal Commission.
Okay, just finally, Matt, you have announced that you are standing again in the Waimakariri seat. I haven't heard, or maybe something has come out. Tracy, are you standing again in Banks Peninsula?
Yes, I'm all confirmed for Banks Peninsula. Out there door knocking already. Loving it.
Door knocking already? Gosh. All right, well, I'll write a story about it because I don't think I knew that. So good on you both, and good luck on election year. Nice to speak with you, and have a lovely weekend.
You too. Have a good weekend,
Thanks,
everybody.
Chris. Thanks, Tracy.